Now let's texturize the rest of the environment, so the sand and the sea. Starting with the sand, we create a new material. The latter evokes the idea of wet sand, but it's necessary to scale the texture. With the tab, we enter in edit mode and select all the faces, so all the square created in the subdivision of the plane to create the sand dunes. We select everything with A and scale. We see how the light reflects on the sand, highlighting the effect of wet sand. As for the material for the water, there are several possibilities to create a realistic rendering of the sea, depending on whether I want to create a sea at low tide or if I want to generate an animation for higher sea waves. What we want to render is a stretch of water with very low waves in which the model can be mirrored during daylight hours. This corresponds to the situation of Torre Pali in reality. As for the wave animation, you can either make them in Blender or import them into Unity or make them directly in Unity. We begin by creating the material, which we rename C. In addition to the node wrangler, which gives the possibility of associating several nodes automatically, as we have seen before, we will now see the existence of new nodes combined together. To do this, we click Shift-A, just as if we want to add a 3D element into the scene. We scroll down the top-down menu to Input and then UV Map, which is the node that handles the texture mapping. We must be careful to connect a UV node to this node. This means that one or two nodes we connect must be a UV nature, so they must have a purple circle that we are going to connect to the UV node we see on the screen. We need to select from the drop-down menu that we open with the Shift-A commands, first the entry vector and then mapping, which we place next to UV node. We can see that for both input and output, this node requires to be mapped to other nodes of the same type, characterized by the purple circle. The intention is to create a single final node of type normal that is able to create ripples on the transparent material to give the idea of water. This normal node must be connected to the principled node. However, to give the idea of moving waves, it's necessary to create two combined normal nodes, one acting along the x-axis and the other acting in the opposite direction along the y-axis. Therefore, since the nodes are considered as a 3D object, it's sufficient to duplicate a node with Shift D and act on the y-axis. So, we first act on the x location by setting it to 0.23. Clicking on Enter, we see how the values turn yellow. These values are yellow at the moment, but we will see later what they are for. First of all, we position the y-axis at 0.23 and connect the vectors this way. We continue by creating another node of a texture type, specifically the noise texture, which serves to ripple the texture. We link vector with vector and leave the values as they are. The two sides' output are to be linked to their respective nodes. For color, we create a mix RGB node, which will link between color and color 1. For color, we create another noise texture and link it to get a useful color mix. Now we insert the bump node, which acts on normal. We connect it not only to principal but also to the mix, connecting the output color to height. We decrease strength to 0.1, and now let's act on transmission to see changes in the water texture and then change the X and Y settings.